I watched that video back and I realized that I made a few mistakes with some of the words that I say. Sometimes I listen to it and I feel like that's the wrong word. That's the wrong word. When I don't know if there's padding in my attic above my extension, because I remember them having padding in the walls and knowing that they'd missed out like a section. There was one section that they missed out because they didn't have enough. And then I was going to like check to make sure they did fill it, and I don't believe they did. But then afterwards, I was like, right, I definitely need to make sure they put padding in the roofing, and they sealed it up before I had an opportunity to see whether or not there is padding. So I was going to get the guy to just double check to make sure that there is padding in that section. It is very warm, but only in the summer, and it might be because they've used good tiles. I know they've used good tiles, so when the sun shines on these tiles, it actually heats the tiles up, and the tiles become like a mini heater. Like if you walked on it during the sun, when it's on a very sunny day, it kind of burns your feet a bit. So I know that acts as a really good heating system, but I don't know if they put padding in, so I needed him to get to check that. But yeah, I'm noticing for the last year that they've had so many like, you know, help your house with doing all these things, and they're going to put an extractor fan in the bathroom and stuff. And you know, I don't know why you're giving so many benefits to people, and I don't know why it's specifically for people who are on universal credit, but I guess people who are on universal credit are people that don't have very much money, but people who don't have very much money, you know, who owns these houses? You know, that's what I'm thinking. Who is this really benefiting it? Because I've got a feeling that the people in at the elites are only trying to help the rich, and I've just because that's how it is. That's how it's always been. Who benefits from having houses that, if your salary is 30,000, which is kind of like the average salary, maybe 35 now, it might have gone up, but if the average salary is about 5,000, why would it benefit people to have the average house being about 400,000? You know, that will just basically mean that you would have to be asleep. And these are houses that have been existing for like 70, 80, maybe even 100 or 200 years. Why would a 200-year-old house be worth so much money? Why would you have to work so many years? I mean, if you bear in mind that there's taxes, so if you're earning 40,000, you're not actually earning 40,000, because a quarter of that gets taken away for tax, and then you've got a lot for car, and then you have a lot for living expenses and so much stuff, and so you're left with a tiny fraction of it. You're left with about £10,000, and then to think that you've got houses that are this much, you know, who is benefiting from this? Well, obviously only the bankers. So who has set up this system? Well, it's supposed to be the government, but clearly the government is only helping the bankers. So I'm assuming that the future is, well, whatever's happening now is probably similar to what was happening before, which is that there's obviously a bunch of people in the government who are only helping the bankers, and it's because of this reason that I don't actually want to support the typical politician, because I think the typical politician are people with money. They've got money in the banks, and they're creating a system that basically just helps the bankers. Now, do I care? Do I not care? That is the thing, because technically, if the bankers are the rich ones, if the bankers are the smart ones, if the bankers are the intelligent ones, then I'm glad that they're being helped. If, however, they're just making problems for me, well, that's not bad. That's not a good thing. But then again, the only reason why I'm poor is because I can't get a job. And the only reason why I can't get a job is because everyone ignores me. But the thing is, if I was just a normal person, maybe I wouldn't be experiencing this. Maybe I would have been able to get a job. Maybe I would have been encouraged to, I don't know, even work in a nursing home, only to like become like a manager of a nursing home or something. You know, I probably could have done that job quite well, and I probably would have been in a very different position to what I'm in now. You know, if I was earning 40 grand, I probably would have bought a house a long time ago. But then again, if I was to die and then be reincarnated right now, you know, those are the people that are being affected the most, the younger generation, the people who are just being born now, who haven't had 20 years of employment to back up buying a house. And now what, they have to get on a property market when they're competing with bankers who give out loans, 95% loans to people. I mean, they'll be forced to take a 95%, you know, a massive loan out. And is that actually a smart thing? No, because they're going to have to basically be a slave just to give their money to a banking system. So they basically have just become a slave of the banking system. And I don't like this. Why? Because I think there are some really intelligent young children that just haven't had any chances, and maybe they were actually the bankers. Maybe the bankers that, you know, your uncle or your father who was a banker who died 10 years ago, you know, maybe he's now a 5-year-old and he's got the whole, you know, a problem because he can't get on the housing market because he's got no money. His money's been taken away from him. All his wealth that he had, okay, if he had a wealth in his past life, he'd probably be born to a wealthy family now. But that might not be the case. You don't 100% know. He'll be born to parents that are similar to how he was in his past life. But then again, if he was a horrible, nasty person in his past life, he might be born to people who are horrible and bankers who are horrible. I don't know. I can't insult them because I don't know who they are. But I know that I need to think more like a globalist. If the globalists are the ones who have all the power, if the globalists are the ones who are making decisions, I guess I want to be on their side. Why? Because they're the ones with the power. So I'm going to be on their side. Yeah, how you would think if you're a globalist, you would know that there is going to be a time where borders are going to disappear. Borders are completely going to disappear. Right now, I don't think borders should be disappeared. Why? Because there are literally a bunch of people in Nigeria slaughtering Christians simply for worshipping Jesus and not Muhammad, you know. So because of that, you don't want to have no borders. Why? Because these people are going to come across the border, they're going to come into England, and they're going to start running around with knives or just tainting everyone. You know, if you've got a country and if you have a country and then you literally got like 10% of the population that are it's whatever the number is. So say if there's 1 million people in a country, or 10 million, if there's 10 million people, that's easy calculation. If there's 10 million people in a country, and then you find 1 million really nice people that are all way nicer than this country, and then you get that 1%, that 10%, which is 1 million of them. If you get 1 million of them to come into this country, so that there's now 11 million in this country, you would find that the country would be so much better because this 10% would inflict like positive energies and good things to it. Now, if it was the other way around and you had 10 million people in a country and then you got 1 million bad or inverted or just, you know, people with bad morals or bad standards, or people who think that they're good when really they have just corrupt ways and beliefs, and you get those people into the country, you know, you would find that the whole country becomes so much more disgusting. And that is basically what's happened to England. They've got a huge number of people from all over the world that might be nice. Some are not. But the problem is you can't tell by how they look which way they are. And I feel like the checks are not being done, especially with the boats coming through, you know, and England is falling apart. And the thing is, though, from a globalist perspective, you would have to be like, right, there is going to be this rapture. There is going to be this sort of nexus that allows people to go into another world, into a better world where they can be happy, you know, a heavenly world, one where God isn't Anna and doesn't hate you, but much better, something that's much better. You know, you just need to agree to lose your body and we'll send your soul into another world. You know, they will believe this. Right now, people won't, if I say that this is going to happen, people won't believe it because they'll be like, well, there's no evidence of it. But I know that there's evidence that I'm Christ. I know there's evidence that I'm living in a matrix, that I can control, or I have inspired lots of things of the past that link to my daily life. And this has been happening to me for 14 years, 13 years. It's probably been happening all my life. I just wasn't aware of it. I wasn't aware that this was happening because nothing seemed to link to me. It was only when I met Martin that was when everything started to link to me, and it was just like, well, how is this linking to me? Well, none of this was linking. There was a couple of songs. The Boots were the first song, and that sad Mad World one. That both those two songs linked to me, but there wasn't that many songs linking to me. But after I met Martin, suddenly everything started linking to me, and it's been doing that for a long time. And if you knew that it's been doing this to me, and if you saw proof that I'm inspiring, you know, some things that I do in my everyday life inspire things that happened 10 years ago, like me feeling like I'm being poisoned and then finding the angel of poison. I think I actually found her first, and then I was talking about how my eyes were really hurting because I felt like I was being poisoned, and then I worked out, was it that order? I don't know. I worked out she was angel of poison, and I have been talking about feeling like I've been poisoned. So it was almost like that tied in together. And just all of them tied in. You know, five. I found five before, but I never linked. I never knew one of them had Robinson as a surname, and so it's just whatever. You've seen the proof of it. If you're not willing to look at my Facebook page, then you're someone who's not willing to look at the proof. And if you're not willing to look at the proof, why? Why are you not willing to look at the proof? The proof that I'm God is not lying on these YouTube videos. It lies on Facebook. I don't know if I keep saying that, but I'm saying it now if you haven't heard. But yeah, once people see the truth about that, they're going to realise we are living in a matrix, we are living in a computer, and then they're going to start thinking that something's talking to them through the computer, because that's what happened to me. If they think it's a female, that's me, then they'll kind of be able to hopefully get a bit more sense through me. And I can tell them, I don't like you. So if you think there's something in the internet that doesn't like you, well, it's me and I don't like you. So, or maybe I do, and maybe you're just over-analysing things or over-reading things. You know, I don't think she's talking to everyone individually. This is not my power, but I do think she can manipulate and control things. You know, I think she is doing a lot. She has a lot of power. She's not all powerful, but she has a lot of power. Now, if you can accept that, you'll be okay. But if you can't, and if you're going to continuously seek for something better, you will want to commit suicide. So the globalists know that. They know that there's going to be a mass suicide. When this happens, housing is going to become incredibly cheap. If the housing market basically crashes or halves, it will half according to the number of people that leave. The more people that leave, the cheaper it will become. And some places that people are more depressed in are going to, you know, they're going to get worse. And I think the weather will be a big factor on that. I would not want to live in a cold climate. England is about as cold as I'd want to go. Other people might like a colder climate. You know, I know there are people in Scotland that probably do like being in Scotland. Are there people in Denmark and Sweden and Finland? I don't know. If they are used to that country, if they're used to the way of life, if they're used to things, they might stay. You know, there's a lot of penguins like being in cold country, and they're not going to leave just because they can. You know, there are some people who like being in certain areas. So I think if you're a globalist and you want to know the future, you need to actually ask people these questions. You know, if you could live anywhere in the world, if there was no borders, where would you go? And I think you should do a survey on this, and maybe you already have. But if you want to be a globalist that wants to be able to predict the future, I know that there's going to be a mass deportation of people wanting to go to another world, so this is going to massively reduce the population. If there's a massive population reduction, houses all over the world are going to become incredibly cheap because of this. But if houses all over the world do become incredibly cheap, and if there's going to be no borders, because right now we have borders because there are dangerous people, we don't want bad people into this country, we don't want immoral or wrong people into the country, but because of this rapture, you know, I want to get rid of the wrong and immoral people. The people that don't believe that I'm God are going to be people who don't respect women. You know, if you don't think that I'm God, it's probably because you don't believe that a woman can be God. Now, if you don't think a woman can be God, I want you off the planet, basically, because I am, and you're insulting me by saying that you don't think I can be a woman because I don't have a dick. You know, I think that's very insulting for me. And yeah, I watched EastEnders the other day, yesterday, and I haven't seen it in a very long time, but because I've been talking about it, I thought I would check out, see what's going on. And there was two boys being brainwashed into believing that men must be men and women must be women, and men are better, and men can be violent towards a woman if a woman is trying to put herself above him. And he ended up attacking his stepmom and almost killing her. And basically, even though it didn't make sense how one punch kind of knocked her out, but yeah, afterwards it looked like he knew that she was down, and he attacked her, even though she was not fighting back or in the position to fight back. So that really does show kind of like a real monstrous dictator character. Although I do notice, though, he was, before that, you know, the conversation was more about him trying to say that men need to be men and women need to be women, and yet both their parents, both the parent, the mother of of one of the boys, of the one who didn't hit but was just a friend of the one who did hit. Or he did actually hit his mother. Apparently, I didn't see that episode, but he said there was one point where he did hit his mum, and he got sent to juvenile delinquent things for that. But he got out, and well, this time was a more severe one, but it was his friend, and I guess his friend was the more ringleader type of it. But both of their parents, the females were, in a way, Kat and this other person, who I've not seen before, but they both are very, very masculine. They were women, yes, but they were very masculine women. And if you were trying to say why should men not hit women, but if you're speaking to those two, I mean, they basically are like men in women's bodies. Like, okay, Kat does like makeup and she likes makeup and the leopard print, so she does have a feminine side to her, but I think her masculine side is also very strong. She's basically the male in the father, she's like the male because she's the more strong one, she's the dominant one, she's the more aggressive one when it comes to vocally speaking, and she's hit guys before. So I could understand when he was trying to say that why is it okay for a woman to hit a man and yet it's not okay for a man to hit a woman. I can see it from his perspective, because Kat was a very kind of masculine, strong woman. In a way, if someone like her hit me, or someone smaller or thinner or just shorter, I don't actually know how tall Kat is, but yeah, I don't know. It's an argument to have, but because she was a very masculine guy, but I don't know if a masculine woman was to hit a very feminine, I'd feel like a feminine type does not hit back, or if they do hit back, it might not be as hard. But then again, I could probably hit quite hard, so I don't know. But it was just interesting, and I don't know. It was a point that, what was the topic? It's gone off topic. But yeah, I was talking about. I've actually forgotten what I was talking about. Gone completely off topic. I might need to press stop. But we were originally talking about the housing market, and then I was talking about the housing crash. Oh, the global elitists. So yeah, I have to just. I don't know what else to say because I've gone completely off topic and I've forgotten what I was talking about. But yeah, if the housing market crashes, you need to do surveys on people to find out like who is going to want to live where and where everyone's going to want to live. And if you find that there is a high number of people in a certain area, that would probably move south if the borders were open and if the rules were the same. I do not want to live in an Islamic country because I do not agree with the rules or laws, but Islam is about to be taken out. Islam is about to be taken out of the world, and therefore these Islamic rules are not going to be affecting Islamic countries and destroying the country in the future. So if that happened, Egypt is full of Islamic people, and it's the Islamic people that I don't like, but I love the in Sharm el Sheikh particularly, there were some really lovely houses and hotels, not houses, hotels. They were mostly hotels, but there were some really lovely places. And if Islam didn't exist, I would 100% want to go there for a holiday, or but yeah, technically, I would want to go to America if I could move anywhere because it's warmer. I'd go to maybe California or something, but if the globalists are looking at the different things, maybe they've got like some sort of grading system. So you should go to all the different cities and think, if the population was massively reduced, how many people would live here? How many people would choose to live here? How many people? Because there's certain areas and there's certain patches as well. I think there's not enough gardens or walks in LA. So if there are a big section of sort of ugly buildings, I think it would be amazing if we could just blow those buildings up and turn it into a garden. But yeah, if the bankers are the ones that are going to repossess loads and loads of houses because of high mortgages and them just sort of collecting up all these houses, if they're going to be doing something like that, collecting up all the houses. Maybe if there's some that they can't get hold of because the owner owns the lion's share of the house and they can pay off the mortgage, maybe they've got a couple of houses and they can make a couple of a couple on, maybe they've got some houses that don't have a mortgage and they can sell those ones and use that to pay off the mortgage. I know if the housing market crashes everywhere, it's going to be hard to sell properties, but I think looking from a global perspective, there's going to be a lot of people in poorer countries or colder countries, should I say, and they might prefer to move south, even if it means just saying, right, I've got a house, but there's, are you really going to want to live in a city in a very cold country if there's no shops or restaurants or facilities because everyone else has left? So I feel like there's going to be a time where there's going to be a high migration from colder countries into richer countries, and they will have to lose everything. They'll leave their house behind, they'll leave everything that they've spent on their house, because they would realize that I can't live in a city that's empty. And I just feel like maybe this is going to happen. I don't know how bad the collapse is going to be, but it's going to be bad, because there's so many people here that are just bad and just not nice people. And yeah, I just, I think if you're a globalist, you'd have to think, where would I want to invest in? And if you are offering high mortgages in nice areas whilst knowing that there's going to be a housing market collapse and you're basically going to repossess the house because the owner will no longer be able to pay off the mortgage, because the mortgage might be higher than what the value of the property actually is. And they'll want somewhere to live, they'll definitely want somewhere to live, but if there's loads of free houses, or if the houses are so much cheaper elsewhere, it might make sense for them to just move elsewhere. At least then they won't have they move elsewhere because they'll have a less high mortgage or something. I don't know what will happen, but I guess if it's all nice people left over, then maybe you can just give away free houses or something. Like, if there's so many places that are empty, you could offer say, if the world is full of nice people, then those would be the ones that inherit everything. And yeah, I think the whole idea of governments offering all these benefits to help upgrade your house, it could just be because they're looking at the areas that are probably that people are going to still want to live in the future, and they're thinking, let's use the tax money to invest in these houses. Why? Because these houses, okay, they might have new owners, they might be repossessed by the bank or something, but yeah, if that's what they're doing to help the bankers when they finally own, or the people that own the money in the house, I don't know. I'm just thinking about stuff, and that's what I was thinking.